All right. Good evening, Wendy, Little Season Minister, and Connor. Good to see you guys. Man, it's such a blessing to have you guys in here. Feels so much better when you're in the company of like-minded people, you know, people that are irreverent truth seekers. And that's what I think about when I think about this community. I want to apologize for not going live Friday. The last few weeks have been really tough on me. I had worked at one point. I was on call, and then I was no longer on call, and work's been really tough. You know, work's just is dramatic, I guess. And so I get overwhelmed sometimes with it. I'm not as young as I used to be, and so Friday evening I came home and I tuckered out, and I was out until about 10 a.m. the next day. And then I had a few errands to run and whatnot. Of course, I wanted to work on a pretty decent presentation for you guys, because Revelation 6 is a very, very in-depth and intriguing subject or topic. But before I dive back into Revelation, and if you've been following me in this new series I've built here, we're going line by line, studying and understanding where this millennial kingdom deception began and ends, and how it was created through this remarkable journey of studying Revelation line upon line, precept upon precept. And for those that don't understand what that means, it's basically just looking at this book, at each individual line, reading it for what it says, understanding what it says, and then moving on to the next part without changing what it's telling you to fit whatever mold of accepted reality you've built in your mind. That's what this is. So that's why I'm going over it the way I'm going over it. But I wanted to say something else. I wanted to talk about another thing or two before I get off into that. You know, the life I thought I was going to live, the places I thought I would be, and the people I thought I'd meet and know are not always intertwined with what actually happens. And one thing that burdened me for the longest time was living for decades without anyone to talk to about the things that are going on in my head. And I'm talking about the things that I've studied, the things like learning and understanding about Jesus. Let's see, this thing is telling me to open my studio. Okay, never mind. That's fine. It's just warning me. But the point that I was getting at with that is that sometime along the way, you know, YouTube and Facebook and other social media type outlets come up, and people start sharing the things they have and the things they're interested in and the things they want to do. They want to get famous. They want to entertain people. And I don't think there's anything necessarily too wrong with all of that. And before you had all the social media craze, you had things like AOL chat. And that's how you, communicated with people ways off and whatnot. And outside of that, you were bound to the limitations of travel. How far could you drive around and meet people and come back home? And now we have this social media craze, and it's wild. It's wild because I see a growing number of people hearkening to the words of this book. And more people are coming to terms with it and studying it and reading it for themselves. I think there's been this fanciful delusion spread over everyone that's convinced us that we don't have enough sense to understand and comprehend these words. I find it rather offensive as a Christian. And a remarkable thing happened today. I go out on my first call, and the customer's main reason for calling us was a lack of knowledge. They didn't understand the equipment that they bought and the devices they had, and I didn't understand them too much, but I knew enough to be able to talk with them and explain to them how these things work that they have. And as I was talking with them, I don't intend to go to work or to be out and about and have biblical based conversations. I simply go to work with the mindset that I'm here to do a job, and that's all I'm here to do. Well, sometimes doing what we do as plumbers, we're also like a therapist. People want to talk to us and tell us about their day and their lives and whatnot. And there's nothing wrong with that. There comes a point where people take advantage of all that, though. They misuse it. And I like to seize opportunities to talk about God. If it hadn't been for my insatiable desire to talk about Him, I wouldn't have come to the understanding of where at in time we are. I wouldn't know what these words mean, even though I can read them. And it was just so fascinating. I sit here and I talk to them, and I get this opportunity to brag on the Millennial Kingdom, Little Season, Truth Seeker community. Whatever we are, this group of people, they're sparked with joy and wonder and this desire to serve the Lord, and they want to know what's right, not for the purpose of self-fulfillment, just for that, but they want to know the truth so that they know how to behave and how to do right, because they want to please the Creator. They give us this opportunity to be here, and that's how I see this kingdom, this group of people, this community. And as I was bragging about it, I'm talking about all of you guys watching and listening to this episode right now. I'm talking about all of you and how it doesn't matter that necessarily I don't have the same people in my life to pick up a phone, call, talk to them, see how their day is going, chit chat about my ideas or what I just read, making sure I understand what I'm reading here. And for whatever reason, My sound just cut out. Oh, no, it didn't. All right. But for whatever reason, I'm talking to this fella and he says, "Can I pray for you?" Comes over to me, puts his arm on my shoulder. I say, "Yeah, of course." And we sat there and I listened to him give this a beautiful, beautiful prayer. And he's praying for me. After we get through and he's done praying for me, this man looks at me and says, well, he looked at me and he said, "Don't be embarrassed about who you are and where you come from and where God has led you to be today. After all, like you said, I meet on average 3 to 5 people a day, 5 days a week. That's hundreds of people a year. And with each person you meet within this community, I've learned that with one person that you meet, there's 10 people behind them ready also to meet you. And so if I can average 250 people a week and multiply that times 52 weeks, because that's usually about how many weeks we work in a year, that's a lot of people that I have the opportunity to ask them, have they ever read Matthew 24 or Revelation chapter 20, and just to see what they have to say about it. A lot of times they'll tell me and start going on, and I've had them even explain to me, like in detail, the events of tribulation. And I sit here and I wonder, how come so many people can talk about this, but then when you acknowledge it out loud, it's suddenly reversed? It's wild. You know, it's amazing because when Jesus came into this world, people don't understand how significant that was. And I talk about this sometimes with people that I work around, that today we're all taught to be individuals. We're all taught to think of ourselves first. And by doing that, we separate ourselves from the collective mindset of the whole group of people, which is society. And in reverse, in contrast to that, you would think that self-separation would cause people to want to stay away from society, but it often brings them to society. Because deep down in our core, we crave that affection, that attention or acknowledgement of one another. And I see how people are in this world, and I see how things are going, and sometimes they look bad, and sometimes we wonder if it's ever going to get any better. And then we start wondering about what it will be like when it does get better. But when that star came up in the night sky and those kings started heading that way, they weren't just 3 kings on 3 camels. They were 3 kings in a caravan of their legion came with them. They knew about Jesus because they understood the signs. They saw that star in heaven. They said that was foretold in a prophecy. That was foretold in a prophecy. Hold on, let me pull this up right here. Let's see if I can figure out which one this is. All right, I'll have to move that around. I want to read this. I want you to read what this is. You'll see. The thing is, Jesus says these words. It's amazing to me that people will disregard the book of Enoch because they don't know how he could have wrote his own book. Why would he talk about himself in the third person if he wrote his own book? Well, the reality of this comes from the fact that I understand that Enoch was the first scribe. Oh, wait. I'm got to catch up. Let's see. I don't want to get too far behind on you guys. It is a blessing to be able to speak to so many people. Grateful for this community. I have a lot to say sometimes, and I'm glad y'all listen. Hard to find that even in other communities. I actually never said how many... It actually never said how many kings came. That's right. Everyone appreciates your insight, Wendy. Yes, and of course, we do appreciate your insight, Wendy. Thank you for always... I'm grateful to all of you guys when y'all comment and speak up, because it helps keep me straight, make sure I'm not diverting too much. If I get too out of whack with what I'm talking about, I'm sure someone can clarify it for me. All right. But this is the book of Enoch, chapter 1. And in chapter 1, it says, "The Holy Great One will come forth from his dwelling, and the eternal God will tread upon the earth, even on Mount Sinai, and appear from his camp, and appear in the strength of his might from the heaven of heavens. And all shall be smitten with fear, and the watchers shall quake, and the great fear and trembling shall seize them unto the ends of the earth. And the high mountains shall be shaken, and the hills shall be made low, and shall melt like wax before the flame. And the earth shall be wholly rent in sunder, and all that is upon the earth shall perish, and there shall be a judgment upon all men. But with the righteous he will make peace. He will make peace, and will protect the elect, and mercy shall be upon them, and they shall all belong to God, and they shall be prospered, and they shall all be blessed, and he will help them, and light shall appear unto them, and he will make peace with them. And behold, he cometh with 10,000s of his holy ones, to execute judgment upon all, and to destroy all the ungodly, and to convict all flesh of all the works of their ungodliness which they have ungodly committed, and all of the hard things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him." Now that's chapter 1 of Enoch. Well, that's not even the first few verses. In the beginning here, it does say, "The words of the blessing of Enoch, wherewith he blessed the elect and righteous, who will be living in the day of tribulation, when all the wicked and godless are to be removed. And he took up his parable, and said, Enoch, a righteous man, whose eyes were opened by God, saw the vision of the Holy One in the heavens, which the angels showed me. From them I heard everything, and from them I understood, and I saw, but not for this generation, but for a remote one, which is for to come. Concerning the elect, I said, and I took up my parable concerning them." I highlighted the elect because what this chapter 1 of the book of Enoch was written to you. It was written to this generation of people. It was written to the post-millennial kingdom people. This is who this is written to. This is talking about all the events from Jesus Christ, his birth, resurrection, and all that, all the way up into you and me today. That's what this is talking about, chapter 1. He wrote this, and then he told Noah to seal this up, to close it up, and hide it away, to put it away for a future generation. No one is going to convince me that Noah wouldn't have been clever enough to devise some manner between him and Shem to figure out a way to keep this book disclosed until the 21st century, and suddenly it's been discovered and translated, and now we know what it says. If this book was meant for any other generation, they would have known what parts of this, were meant for them and which parts weren't. These parts here, they didn't. They talked about. He talks about Jesus is coming, his return. He talks about his birth and resurrection, and in his life, and how he is going to come here and basically destroy this world. But he's going to make peace with it and make peace with us. And things will be good for a time. And anyhow, so I wanted to point this out in the book of Enoch, that what it's talking about when they talk about the elect, they're not talking about the same elect that we talk about when we say elect in the world today. It seems as though, to me, certain people understand this. It's why you'll see certain political signs out by roads and stuff, and some of these political signs will have like elect so and so, but then the other ones will say vote for so and so. You kind of put two and two together. Whoever puts vote on there knows that they're not elect. They're not the elect ones. It's only the ignorant that think they're the elect ones, or the elected. The ones that end up being the elect ones, as you would learn by reading through this book, and there's several chapters here, and I'm not here to go over all of the book of Enoch with you guys tonight, but we can do that at another time. All I'm pointing out here is that this here, that's enough. This here is just showing you, I'm showing you why they didn't want people to know about this book. But they did know about it even in Jesus' day. So it wasn't all just for you and me, but it was for you and me. Okay, so some of our time and Jesus' time they kind of mix, they kind of coincide. But you're going to see all that here pretty soon. All right, I pulled ChatGPT up because I wanted to show. Let's see if I can fix this again. I liked how the writing of it in it was is dark print or a dark background or whatever. It makes it easier for me to read. So I'm hoping that it'll make it easier for you guys to read it. All right, that's back in its place. Let me pull that down. We'll put that away. I know that they understood what that star meant. Like, for example, today, if there was a sign in the sky, I'm not trusting anybody to tell me what that sign in that sky means. I don't think any of us have the capability to understand what these stars or these signs mean the way they knew it back in this book, back in the Bible days. And the reason I know that is because in the book of Jasher, you learn a lot more about Abraham. And one thing I learned about Abraham is that on the night of his birth, his father's maidservant also had a child in that same night, coincidentally. And what ended up happening is Abraham's father goes to the seers and asks them, hey, tell me what this means. The seers tell him, well, it means your son is going to kill Nimrod. And at the time, Nimrod, the grandson of Ham, son of Cush, was, for as much of it that matters in the big scheme of things, he was the ruler of the world. He was the king of Babylon. He built the Tower of Babel. And all this was after the flood. Well, Abraham was said to kill him, basically. He was going to end his line, or end him in some way. That was what the signs mean. Well, Abraham gets worried about this, but he's a simp, like a hardcore simp. Not Abraham, but Abraham's father. And Abraham's father goes to King Nimrod and pleads his case and tells him what's going on and explains to him that he has nothing to do with this prophecy. The prophecy just exists. And all because the star signs, the signs, they said that. That's what it meant. That's what that means. And Nimrod was like, all right, that's cool. Bring me your kid and we'll talk about it. So he does. But he thought about it. Instead, he brings his maid servant's child who had just been born, hands him over to Nimrod. Nimrod crushes his head with his heel. And when he crushes the head of that baby, a whole life and bloodline cease to exist. But Abraham's line got to carry on. Because what they ended up doing is he takes Abraham to live with Noah and Shem. And Noah and Shem raised him for almost 40 years before he finally decided to depart and go out into the world. Goes on to talk about how he went out and had to discover what God was. And he got real upset with his birth father once he realized his birth father worshipped idols, false gods. And as he fusses and whatnot, it riles up the king, realizes he's been befooled, and tries to kill Abraham again, only Abraham don't die. So Nimrod banishes him, basically, sends him out into the wasteland. And that makes sense to me that it would have been a wasteland when you consider that the flood destroyed everything. And these people only mere a few generations after the flood, so it's not like the whole world would be like it is today. So I imagine it was pretty tough on Abraham being out there, but all this because of a sign in the sky. Well, they believed it because they don't believe in this. They don't believe and understand the same way we do. Our individualistic minds keep us disconnected from all the things that are true in this world. That's why it's always humbling when I talk to Mr. John Fry. I haven't talked to him in a little while. I'd be surprised to know I got his packages is on the way. But he always says he wants to make a YouTube channel that only talks about the Lord, and he wants all of us to come together and to be able to talk about the Lord. And that's amazing because it's not something I ever thought I'd say. That I want to just talk about the Lord. Now that I understand enough of it, it makes sense to me, and I'm glad that I do get to say that, But King Herod also believed in these signs. That's why he wanted to get rid of baby Jesus. And so he decided to get rid of all the 2-year-olds and under. Jesus ain't gonna go down like that. Eventually he grows up, and through all this glorious wonder, he amazes even the priests. How can this kid know scripture that only people who can read should know? That's because people don't really understand who raised Jesus and who Joseph was. You know, we get lost in this book and we get fixated on Jesus and Paul and Judas and certain other characters, and we lose sight of the reality of things. Jesus was a man like you and me at one point, raised by a man who loved him, treated him like his own son, and taught him how to survive, taught him how to be a carpenter. For any plumber or blue collar worker, you understand what kind of life that is. And so you can kind of understand already, if you think about it, what kind of life Jesus had. The only difference is there would have only been a few cities and not thousands of them like we have today. It would have been a lot harder on folks. And so you can imagine the joy and the wonder and the excitement when this man who was prophesied to stroll into town on a donkey ends up doing that. I mean, they went before and they followed, cried, saying, Hosanna, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. They knew who he was because they believed in these prophecies. They believed in the words of Scripture. Whether they had read it or had been taught it, they believed what they knew and understood. But even the humbleness of this man, he, son of God, but still humble enough to allow another man to baptize him. You know, we get fixated on authority, who to serve and who not to serve. That's a trap I fell into for a long, long time, but now I don't know. I just don't worry about who those other folks are. I just figure I'm just going to serve the Lord and stick with that. And so far, that's worked out pretty good. Everything isn't the way I'd always hoped it'd be or even wish it'd be. And I wouldn't wish the struggles I've went through on anyone. Yet here we are. And there he was, in the Jordan River, being baptized by another man, who goes out and performs miracles and says things that only someone who really knew what they were talking about would say. Today you have so many people that doubt Scripture. It's no wonder people don't know what these words mean, what these words say. But as we try to get that across to people and try to get people to understand what this message says and what it's talking about, we forget that some of these people we're reading and learning about lived not long after the flood. With the exception of Jesus' day, during the height of the Roman Empire, it would have been vaguely similar to the way it is today. I mean, you would still have people going to sleep when they need to be awake, behaving in the same manner that we behave today, regardless if the technology had caught up to them yet or not. One thing's for certain, we can't build like they built, and their stuff lasted, well, for the most part. And then you have these men that just drop everything for this fella. You had a tax man. You know he was wealthy. You know he had money. He had a license to steal. He was just doing his job, taking everybody's money, but gave it up and walked away to follow Jesus. And what a thing that must have been, you know. I think about that today, how difficult it would be, even for me, to just drop everything and go. Then you have the age-old story of greed. Love of money ruins a lot of people, just like it did Judas. You know, and Judas took that 30 pieces of silver. It wasn't an act of evil that we lost from. It's an act of evil that we gained from. It's a different perspective on looking at it when you think about all the bad things in the world that have happened in time. The murders, wars, all the bad things. The things you can't say without censorship. And as all these bad things happen, they've happened so that you could be here. Because without them, just the same as without all the good, you don't exist. But neither would have Judas. He wouldn't be here either. But then they go arrest him. And growing up, that meant something to me, but I don't think it really struck me until I saw that movie Passion of the Christ. You know, I don't think I really understood how significant it was when Jesus went on trial. You know, how the purpose of it and how it's different, and how trial on earth is different than trial in heaven. You know, that even goes into like how we condemn today in society. The way it works is you commit a crime, you get caught, you get judged. Then once you're judged, you get sentenced. Once you do your sentence, if you're alive, you're free. If you have a get out of at some point sentence. But God doesn't do it that way. God sentences you first. And then you're judged. So then that made me wonder, what about all the people that are dead now and in hell? Maybe they don't stay there. You know, maybe they get judged. Maybe they do their time and they get to come out. It would explain things how this man went to hell and brought a bunch of folks back with him. But sent here to save a people, and they rejected him. And he wasn't a plumber with a small YouTube channel. He wasn't Connor, the cult of Con. He wasn't Spirit of in Truth, Wendy. He wasn't any of these people. He wasn't a normal person. He was the Son of God. And that stands out. And yet, they still rejected him. Makes you wonder how. How could they be so blind? And I would argue to say that they were very educated in Rome, about the same as we are today. But in 33 AD, after this crucifixion. There were several events that were taking place during that same time period. We learn in the book of Maccabees, if you read through that they were already having civil unrest among the Jews or the Israelites and the Romans. Even before Jesus was born, there was already civil unrest. However, when Jesus was crucified, the people really started revolting. And we are taught in certain areas of historical study that this was the Jewish-Roman War, the Maccabean revolts. They call it several different things. Y'all need to chill out. But they call it several different things, and one thing I learned about all that is that a lot of these events are happening simultaneously as Scripture is unfolding through the New Testament. So we don't realize that as Jesus is getting carted away and killed, right after that, it wasn't like the whole world just went into chaos and calamity immediately. I mean, there was almost 40 years before Jesus returned. The entire events of tribulation did not last the entire 40 years. What did happen during that 40 years, though, is they slowly turned an entire generation against the entire idea of Yeshua HaMashiach. The entire notion of Jesus, they wanted it gone in Rome. And the Christian community started and began being persecuted long before Nero came into place. That's what Jesus was talking about when he was explaining of the Antichrist. But the people in Rome, for the next 40 years after Jesus was crucified, it would have been I'm not comparing Jesus to Floyd Mayweather, but the event of the Floyd Mayweather event ended up sparking controversy and civil unrest in moderated areas. However, it didn't consist of unrest throughout the rest of the world. Most of the world just kind of went on about their day like nothing had happened. I mean, it was a terrible thing. We saw it on the news. Some people made some videos about it, but we've moved on now. And that's exactly what the Roman Empire did right after Jesus was killed. They just kind of went on about life like nothing ever happened. Everything's the same. Nothing's changed. Yeah, it sucks that them Jews, they had that guy killed. And that's about all they would have really cared about it. As an example, if any one of us were alive and lived in Rome, Rome was huge. Any part of Rome that was separated from Jerusalem and Jesus, you might not have been directly affected by all the events that were taking place up until that moment of 70 AD when Jesus returns, and the 7 years prior to that, the tribulation. Outside of that, most people just kind of go on back to life as it was. You know, they just carried on. But we notice in Revelation chapter 6, "And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, 'Come and see.' I wondered what that meant. But to know what that means and know what any of this means, you got to know what happens first. You got to go back to the beginning. What led up to this? At this point, I'm assuming most people that would watch my channel have a vaguely good understanding of the scripture. They know the word pretty well. So you know that there were tensions brewing between the Christians and the Romans. A lot of the Christians ended up going into hiding. They were keeping their message secret. And that was until 63 AD when Nero begins to persecute the Jews. Or not just the Jews, the Israelites and the Christians. And he starts killing Christians everywhere. Like, if you were found or accused of being a Christian, you were killed on the spot. There was no go to trial and prove whether or not you're a Christian. I mean, they seen you, they got you. You know, it was over with for you. It's not a time that any of us should or would want to live in. Which kind of captivates me when I think about how strongly the modern Christian community can reject this little season millennial kingdom message. Because if I'm wrong and this community is wrong, then it's about to get as bad as you can imagine it being, but worse than that. It's about to get really bad. And why would you want that? Because they're under this delusion that they're going to avoid all consequences for all of their actions. All because they believe in Jesus and they asked him into their heart, be their Lord Savior. And they were baptized in a church in front of people. But you know, that's not what was going through Peter's head when they crucified him and they hung him upside down on a cross. And then you had Andrew. He's hung on a cross, but he's spread out. They make his cross like an X. It's why there's something to this story about St. Andrew's cross. You got James, the brother of John. He fell upon a sword. You got John at Patmos, and now he's in prison. So at Patmos, left there. However, I don't believe that he wrote his part in Revelation while in Patmos. I think he was after Patmos when he wrote the book of Revelation. But it might have been. It might have been. Either way, St. Philip, St. Bartholomew, St. Thomas, St. Matthew, St. James, Thaddeus Jude, St. Simon, and St. Matthias. A lot of people don't know who that is, but Matthias was, or Matthias, he was made one of the disciples after Judas's betrayal, once Judas was, cast out. Oh, skipped in one of my slides. What happens next, though, after the persecution of all the Christians and the martyrs, Rome collapses. It starts going into asunder. And we learn that through Scripture. that that's what happens. And we read in chapter 1 through 5, in the first 2 episodes, we learn that the angel of the Lord comes to visit John. And when the angel of the Lord comes to visit John, he brings him to heaven, basically, in the spirit. And when I mentioned that John was dead, I meant all I meant was that the body is as good as dead without the spirit. Without the spirit, there's no point. There's no reason or rhyme for you, really. You don't have the spirit in you. Well, you're not going to heaven. You're not going to hell. You don't. There's no purpose, really. It's a thing that I understand from one of the apocryphal books, and I'm going to show you guys that the other one day. But I left it at work. In one of the books, the apocryphal books that were removed from your modern King James Bible, Jesus is kind of explaining this concept of thought that I'm referencing just then. I think it's in the book of Thomas. It's a good read. You should read it. You should definitely read it. Thomas has an interesting story. A lot of people don't really know what happened to him. They say he was beheaded. Some say he was crucified, but all this was done while he was in India. I doubt he was crucified because I doubt they would have permitted that in India at that time. I could see him being beheaded, though. That would coincide with their, practices at that time. But either way, John ends up joining the Spirit, joining the Lord and the angel of the Lord in the Spirit. And then he gets to see Christ in his eternal glorified body. It's really amazing, really, to think about. How you would behave, how I would act. I meant to say this earlier when I was talking about Enoch. We'll say the phrase I am a lot. Like I am this or I am that. And one of the answers I believe I have for the why Enoch would be written in third person is because I believe that most people wrote about themselves in the third person up until probably the Greek and Roman era, when that mindset changed. And the way we talk today, we will say I am in place of who we truly are. In Hebrew, I would say the Rev every time I would want to address someone with the terms I am. I would just simply say the Rev. So if I am cold, I would say the Rev is cold. And not God is not cold. I am is a representation of Yahweh or Yahuwah, our Father in heaven. And so to sit here and go, yeah, well, that's what, that name doesn't really matter and this and that. And it's kind of an odd way of looking at it is all I'm trying to point out, and getting you to think a little bit more on why we say the things we say in the language we speak today. But I can imagine it was pretty crazy to see all this stuff. We learned that John was given this task to write these letters to these churches that, in my mind, Jesus was giving them an opportunity to be spared, but not all of them were spared. But as John sees all this amazing stuff happening, It overwhelms him and he falls at the feet of Jesus. Can't even believe it's him. I mean, he saw him get killed, but I'm not exactly sure that he would have saw him be resurrected, especially if all of his followers were being rounded up and killed at that time. Not all of them were killed right away either, though. We know that some of them did escape and got away, but not all of them, and most of them were killed. But here, this would have been the first time John had seen Jesus since the last time he saw him was when he was right before he got killed on the cross. So then it makes more sense to me when I think about why he would fall at his feet. And as we kept on reading, if you keep on reading, you come to an odd proclamation of thought. What really did happen in 70 AD? Amazing thing is they're going to really kind of tell you. And it's all about to start telling us real soon. Because like I said in episode 1, Revelation is not a book of future events. It's a book of the past, the present, and the future, but it's through the perspective of the audience of John in Patmos. We learn in chapter 6 a great deal of what actually transpires during this time period that would be John's current day. As in the days after this revelation, this is what's going to take place. That's what chapter 6 is about. And we read here that he saw the Lamb, that he had opened one of the seals, and I heard as it were the noise of thunder, one of the 4 beasts saying, "Come and see." And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him. And he went forth conquering and to conquer. Now, this is all illusory. This is just a fancy way of describing a mass of an event. The mass whole or entirety of an event. All of this, every part of this description is a piece of a prophecy. And that prophecy, all of this is talked about. They talk about it in Daniel. It's talked about it. Isaiah talks about it. And it says, I saw and behold a white horse, and he sat on him. A crown. It sat on him a crown, and had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. What's happening at this moment? You have 70 AD is happening. Jesus is returning at this moment. And as he's returning, he's conquering the kingdoms of the earth. All the kings will be made to bow at Jesus' feet. And when that angel had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see." And there went out another horse, and that horse was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. This description of this seal, this second horseman, It's letting you know that as a result of this conquering, the difference in that is your mindset is based on physical violence. It's because that's what we're taught war is. We see it in movies, and people join the Marine Corps all the time. So we definitely know what war is. However, in this moment, in verse 2, when he saw the white horse that sat upon him, a crown was given unto him, and he went out and went forth conquering and to conquer. And if you remember in chapter 2, when we were reading about the letter to the Church of Asia, Jesus basically tells them, if y'all don't chill out and and repent, I'm going to come there with the sword of my mouth. He's not saying that he's going to come there and with a tank and cannons and machine guns and AKs. He's going there to talk. And he understands that when he talks, the people there are going to listen to him. And that's not going to be good. And because people weren't listening to the word, the gospel, there becomes civil unrest. And that's where you have the red horseman when he comes in. He says, power was given to him that thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. This was real battle here. This isn't the sword of the mouth, it's a different sword. This sword is for death. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. Welcome, Cage Fighter. Good to see you here. You're never too late. Whether it's now or later, any time is the perfect and right time for you to be here. We're glad to have you here with us. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Before I lose my train of thought, though, while I was in ChatGPT, I asked it to help me with these images. And what I did is all I did was copy and paste from the words of the Bible, pasted them, and said, can you draw an image? A lot of them it didn't want to do. I had to kind of coerce it into making the image. But here, I thought it fascinating because the third seal, when it says right here, and when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. You know, I remember reading that the first time because I had learned a little bit about the Egyptian mythology. You know, I learned about Anubis. I learned about the Egyptian gods. And I learned that in school. I learned about it in college. I mean, I've had experiences. I've been to Egypt. I kind of know a little bit about that lore or story or history, whatever you want to call it. And I find it fascinating how the third horseman of the tribulation actually very similarly mirrors Anubis mirrors the black horseman. I get lost in this stuff sometimes. My mind starts racing. There was something else I wanted to show you right here. I asked ChatGPT, I said, can you give me a breakdown comparison of the black horse, famine, and the Egyptian god Anubis. All right, let's see if y'all can see. I need to fix this. There we go. And so I asked it this, and it says the black horse famine in Revelation 6 and the Egyptian god Anubis share some thematic similarities, but they represent distinct concepts within their respective religious and cultural frameworks. Here's a breakdown comparison of their symbolism, roles, and attributes. The black horse, famine, symbolizes famine, scarcity, and economic hardship. The rider carries a pair of balances, scales, suggesting the weighing and rationing of food during a time of scarcity. In comparison, Anubis is the Egyptian god of mummification and the afterlife. He is closely associated with death, judgment, and guiding souls to the underworld. He is often depicted holding a scale used to weigh the heart against the feather of truth. It's interesting because the black horsemen, in this comparison of their roles, the black horsemen represent scarcity, a lack of earthly things, whereas Anubis represents the moral, spiritual side of it. It's almost like when the whole idea of Anubis came about after the flood, it's almost like they kind of knew about this prophecy and these angels or these beings, and they called them whatever they called them. They just called him Anubis, and they gave him a different backstory, but it's almost in reverse. It's almost always this. Yeah, it's almost always the opposite. It's like the way we get judged and sentenced. You know, if you go to jail or something, do something bad, like I said, you get judged first, then you're sentenced. But the way God does it, we all get judged at the end. And then it says, the scales in the rider's hand symbolize the measurement and rationing of food during a time of crisis. They highlight the economic imbalance caused by scarcity, where basic sustenance becomes exceedingly expensive. And on Anubis' side, it says, Anubis' scales are used to weigh the soul, represented by the heart, against the feather of mat, to determine the deceased moral purity. If the heart is heavier than the feather, the soul is devoured by a monster, symbolizing failure to achieve eternal life. It says the key difference is that the scales of the black horse are focused on physical survival and economic struggles, where Anubis' scales are about spiritual judgment and moral worthiness in the afterlife. It's a fancy story is all Anubis is. However, when you consider that with Jesus' whole existence, his whole ministry, his whole reason and purpose for being here, we learn that faith without works is dead. We really should have already learned that before Jesus' day, but he made sure that we knew about it even today. And this kind of makes sense to me that this would fit more factual reality, the black horse, in the way it's represented, the physical and the economic hardships that it talks about. And then it says, oh, I didn't realize it said all this. Domain and authority says the black horse operates as part of the divine judgment unleashed upon the earth. The famine affects the physical world, highlighting human vulnerability and dependence on material resources. Anubis' role is spiritual and otherworldly. He presides over the afterlife and ensures that the souls there are fairly judged, reflecting the Egyptians' emphasis on morality and eternal balances. The key difference is that the black horse represents a force of destruction and suffering in the earthly realm. Anubis represents guidance and order in the spiritual realm. Famine often leads to death and scarcity of resources, results in starvation and societal collapse. While death is not the primary rider of the black horse, it is an inevitable consequence of the famine it brings. And that really does make sense to me when you consider the fourth seal being death. In Rome, I never know if I'm saying it right, but it's really hard to pronounce. But there was like a form of currency that they used during the 63 to 70 AD period. And if you didn't have that, you couldn't buy, sell, or trade. Outside of the cities, it would have been more or less a wasteland, with the exception of some forests and overgrown areas and whatnot. So it's not like it would have been today where we say we're going off grid and really we're just going to Arizona or we're going up to Alaska, but we're not going that far away. I mean, we're still within reasonable distance of reach to get back to society if we need to. However, back in those days, the world still hadn't been fully developed yet. You know, it had been several thousand years, yes, since the flood, but it only took 1600 years for God to be so upset with people that he flooded the whole world. During that time period, they had technologies that far surpass anything that we have today. And so if this don't make sense to you, then you're not really paying attention, because what I'm saying is that right after the flood, the first several generations, whether it be the first third or first 3 or 5 generations, it doesn't matter. The point is that the first generations after the flood would have been more in tuned and more serious when it comes to obeying God's word. Unlike today, we're thousands of years after the flood to the point we don't even believe it happened. We're questioning our whole reality. Not me, but society. Let's see. The 4 horsemen were the 4 angels under the Euphrates. When you have hundreds of nuggets in your brain. Oh, when did you have? I do. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. That's right. That is absolutely right. They were under the Euphrates. People don't like talking about them because they don't understand what this means, or they don't understand what this is really talking about, and they don't understand the events of this book, Revelation. But the crazy thing is, we learn that with each event that takes place, the first horseman, the one with the crown and the sword, he ends up converting people. That leads to civil unrest. You got the people versus the government now, which is what we have today, really. We have that going on right now. I don't know that Trump has saved that, but he might have saved it in the minds of a lot of people. But then after the civil unrest, you get the next beast that calls war. And after war, you lose. People's homes are lost. I just saw today, I don't know where I think it was a Facebook picture, but it was a picture of a lady, 70 years, two pictures of her standing in front of a house 70 years apart. In the first picture, she's 17 years old, and it was her house that she grew up in. The next picture, it was her many years later, but her house was stolen in in World War II by somebody else. So another family just took it, I guess. I'm not exactly sure the whole story behind that picture, but the point of it is that war causes people to lose a lot. It causes collapses in societies. I guess on the fortunate side of things, this is why I don't think, this is one of the things that kind of led me away from, all of this we're reading right now, that's taking place right now, that's talking about right now. The reason it got me away from that is because when you really think about it, war today benefits a lot of people. It's not like everybody's sitting here going, man, we don't need no more wars. You would think that that's the thing people would be saying all the time. But if that were the case, then everybody would be serious about that, and there would be no more wars. But we still have these wars, and while people like in Ukraine today have lost their homes, their businesses, their way of life, have lost so much, families, kids, children, loved ones, the industries that build the equipment, the machines, the firepower, all that, they gain, and their families win and gain, and their communities gain, and so it's not fully affecting everybody. When we hear about a war, it's like, yeah, it's a war, it's over there. Just like if we were in America right now fighting a war, you'd have people over in India watching it on the news or seeing it on their phone going, oh man, it's pretty bad over there. Oh, well, look, nope, it's over. It's been 12 years? It's wars, now everybody's moving on with their life. It's not that we all suffer from it. And so I can't compare what I'm reading here to what's going on right now. It's similar. Seems that way. It seems similar. But this is what made me think when I was reading this. That's where I was at, because I've experienced some of this war that we have in our day. And so I just don't think that the Red Horsemen would have been, I just don't think he would have been in our day, is all I'm saying. But I understand the cause and effect of the events that would have taken place. With that, you have, it says, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. All that's talking about, or what they're referring to in verse 6 is they're referencing the events of verse 5, where it talks about the third seal, and then it says the beast says, come and see. I beheld, lo, a black horse, and he sat upon him, a pair of balances. He's telling you what happens. It's people just lose it. Then it says, I'll just read it. It says, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. Now, we don't understand what that means. What is that? What that means is a loaf of bread cost them a whole day's wage. It's what that means, basically. Things were so expensive, no one could afford to live. They were completely dependent own societies, governments, their governments to help them. Much similar to the way we are today, you know. I've been thinking about this a lot when you think about the the fires in California and all those homes. What's interesting, I heard on the news today, they were talking about what the city councils are talking about doing with all those abandoned lots, they called them. Not everybody's losing, sort of. If you're considering worldly things winning and losing, but it's not a worldwide thing. We're not all exactly affected by every little event. Not like this is talking about. He says, when he heard, he opened the fourth seal, and I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." And I looked and beheld a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and he followed with him, and power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with the sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beast of the earth. What this is telling you is that what that's referencing right there. Oh, let's see. Well, I'm not going to. This is a lot of trouble moving all these screens around. I didn't even think about getting that part set up, but this is we'll look. Maybe I can look that up in a little bit. But what this is referencing is back in the New Testament parts. You got Matthew all the way up to Revelation. So wherever it is in there, I can't remember where it is in this moment. I've never memorized verses. It's never been a thing I tried to do. But there's a part in there where Jesus is explaining to the people or to his disciples what it's going to be like and whatnot. And he talks about how the animals will be eating people and whatnot. That's what this is talking about. This is happening as in this moment. This is current events. And power was given unto them. Oh, and I looked and beheld a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with a sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beast of the earth. He's telling you what Jesus was telling them several years ago before he was crucified, that this is what it's going to be like. You'll know, because these are the signs. This is what all it's going to be like. And he tells them that this is what it's going to be like. And from that pale horse, though, as bad as these events are, the martyrdom, the beheadings, the deaths, all the people that died for his name's sake, and when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for their testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? What this is telling you is that all the people that were getting killed, all of those martyred Christians, this is them in heaven going, wait a minute. We know that we're here at now, but you're supposed to judge us and them. Why haven't you judged them yet? Like, what's going on? And I'm not saying that they were confused, but this is what they're saying, basically asking, what's going on? Why aren't you judging them that dwell on the earth still? They're still down there living their best life, doing what they want to do. All roads lead to Rome. But yet They're up here going, what's going on? Why are we still waiting? And it's because of you. It's because you haven't heard this gospel yet. The ones that haven't. And white robes were given unto every one of them. And it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also, and their brethren that should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled. This little season, I heard her say this, but this is not our little season. That parts of it, perhaps. I have no doubt in my mind that if any one of us were unalive today because of our belief in God, that we wouldn't join this group if that group were still joined in heaven. We would go up there and we would just join them. So I'm not trying to say that that's not exactly a possibility. I could be wrong about this, but either way, it's not like it's the worst thing in the world for it to be either one, is all I'm pointing out with that. All I'm saying is that it says here that, and white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants, people that they lived with and knew, their brethren, should also be killed as they were. And once all the martyred Christians are killed, and all of the events of tribulation are done with, then he will judge the world and all the people in it. Then it says in verse 12, and I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars fell from their place. Hold on. And the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. I wasn't prepared to do my Matthew references on all of this. Like I said, I'm a solo production company here, but you can read. We'll go over that. I'll try to catch up with that on the next live. But to reiterate some of this stuff, they talk about these events, and I can't remember because it's either Corinthians or Thessalonians. Either way, I'm not sure if I'm even saying either one of those right. I could be way off, but all I'm saying is that there is valid reason that as a new person reading this, never having learned about any of this, there's valid reason to believe that these are current events to the writer of this, is all I'm pointing out with that. Then it says, and the stars fell unto the earth, even as fig trees casteth unto her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. I can't remember who did the video on it. I want to say it was Leaving Babylon, perhaps, or maybe it was maybe it was somebody completely different. But either way, they were going over the story behind the Star Spangled Banner and what all these words mean. It doesn't necessarily represent the things we think they represent. And it wasn't just the Star Spangled Banner. It was another song, I believe. I just can't recall it right now. It's not one of those things that's so important that you just got to dwell on it. But it's an interesting little tidbit of knowledge to learn. It's right in the same chapter, but it's always overlooked the writers. Now I need to look into the mythology that matches up like Anubis, etc., because I'm really curious on that aspect now. Yeah, exactly. See, what's interesting is that during my little period of being a so-called atheist, it wasn't that I was an atheist. I still believed in God to a degree. I just didn't understand it. And one things that you end up doing is you look into the things that you shouldn't look into, which is other things that don't matter, like other gods. And I learned a good bit about them. I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna say like Billy Carson that I'm an expert in any of this stuff. I just know what I know, and that's all I'm here to do, is share what I do know. But it is going to be difficult for me to find some of the references. However, that's the beauty of the internet. It's amazing. Someone will and will fact check it. And that's always the blessing that comes along with this. You know, to keep a positive note for those who might think about maybe sharing their own message one day, you know, to be positive about it. That's all I'm saying. All right. I don't want to get to that point yet. But the stars fell from heaven in that song, and they talk about it. And there's other events too. So this weekend, Sunday, I went to Barnes and Nobles, and I bought a couple books while I was there. Probably more than I should have spent. More than I probably spent more than I should have. But I bought it because I needed to be able to reference a couple things. I wanted to show you guys, and I'll show you guys this book that I bought next time I come on here and I read a few pages from it. But it's a book that many of you will probably end up wanting to read and look into, especially those that have come to the understanding of Revelation chapter 20. Yes. Well, correct. Yeah, actually, yes. So there's a strong comparison to these angels, each of these angels, and in the way their impact and influence on society. The spirit, it's like an energy. And so when these angels entered into our realm, their spirit or energy is what ends up grabbing us and ultimately forming our mindset on how we're going. D-Russ, good to see you, man. It's been a while. Hadn't seen you in chat in a good bit. Glad you're here, though, brother. But yeah, it's fascinating stuff. And one thing that's interesting to note about ChatGPT and how it gets its information, it basically searches the entirety of the internet. But it is limited to certain ways. So you do have to kind of manipulate your wording sometimes to get it to actually show you the right stuff you're looking for. But it's a good tool to help you think about the things that you probably would have never thought about before. And I'm only learning that now. I'm not an expert on ChatGPT. I just thought it was interesting that I could copy and paste and not even ask it anything, and it just comes up with this whole narrative here, which I'll pull that back up. But it pulls up this, it shows this whole narrative that's really interesting to read and whatnot. And what I'll do is I'll take all of this and I will copy and try to figure out a way to copy and paste this entire conversation thread with ChatGPT on my Discord. So if you guys want to check that out, I'll at some point, that link should be available. on my home screen if you ever want to go there and check that out. And all these pictures in these slides without the wording, I'll put these pictures in my Discord as well. So if anyone wants them for any reason, they'll have access to them, if you want them. But I see D. Russ has joined us, and of course you're not late, sir. I started early. I started at 8 p.m. now instead of 9 p.m. because I've noticed that 9 runs till 11, which if you're on the East Coast, that's going to be 12 midnight. That's 10 to 12, and that's really late. But at the same time, that's like on the West Coast, I would say, what's that? So if I start at 9, that's 7 their time. So if I start at 8, that'll put it at 6, and a lot of people are getting off work around that time or doing stuff around the house, and usually are tuning out by listening to something while they're doing whatever, and it just seems like it may be a better time. And it's helped me too, because staying up that late is difficult on me, because after I'm up late like that, even after I could quit the stream and just hop in the bed, I still gotta wind down. I still have to do a lot of prep work, I guess, is all I'm trying to say with that. So you're not late. I just started a new time. I have been doing a lot of thought and soul searching on a good and permanent schedule. What I like that you guys are here and have joined me tonight. And I know I did kind of prepare more in advance, sort of, but I want you guys to be able to have your mindset scheduled around when I'm going to be live streaming or posting and whatnot. And so I kind of want to, I'm thinking maybe I'm going to try to start with Tuesdays and Thursdays. So like tonight, we're going over we're in episode 3, we're going over chapter 6, Revelation. But the next night would be Thursday. And I know it's Monday right now, but I'm going to need Tuesday and Wednesday to help me finish preparing what I want to prepare for chapter 7. But regardless of that, we do, if I can, I will probably start doing my live streams from 8 to 10 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And that leaves time open for better presentations and for me to catch up with how all this technology works. I'm kind of behind the times. Let me slide this back over where y'all can see it a little bit clearer. But getting back on track, and I wish I got off at 2:30. I get off at the worst time. I don't have too many routes of travel that I could take to get to my home in a speedy fashion. It's going to take a while no matter which way I go, but each way I go, everybody else is also trying to go that same way, and they're also trying to get home all at the same time, and everybody's in a hurry, and everybody's in competition with everybody else. And so it's always a nightmare trying to get home. But when traffic's really bad, it's even really worse. However, days like today, when it's cold, we don't know how to behave anymore down here in the South. So it's pretty nice because you can get on the road and there ain't as many people as it normally would be. Kind of makes you wonder why so many people get out here in public yet want to act like they're not out in public. It's an odd thing that we've bulled ourselves into. Oh my goodness, man, I've looked into that. I don't know. I would like to work from home, I think. I really think I would, but I don't know how competent I would be in that. Just being real with myself. So I don't get too far off track. It says over in verse 13, "And the stars of heaven fell onto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And there are songs, there are books, there are stories, I have to try to find it. Some of this stuff is super hard to find, especially now that I've reset. I had to restore my computer, so I kind of lost some things. But there's a book that I was reading a while back that it was basically a book of different diaries and journals from people from the 1800 time period, and some of them were talking about having seen the stars falling from the heavens and whatnot. It's pretty amazing some of the stuff you learn about the people that were in the insane asylums, in the stuff that they were saying and talking about. Their grandparents seeing Jesus, riding down on a cloud, and they're going, they're talking about it, and the people of that day are going, "Oh, you're crazy, insane asylum." That's where they ended up going into. It were the remaining people. And when you think of it from that perspective and context, it really makes you wonder. Like when I'm thinking about the Civil War, for example, if everything we've been taught is a lie, even the whole act of the Civil War may have been a lie, or its purpose. See, the villains are usually the Southern people. We're called the hospitality state down here for a reason. We have Southern pride, Southern joy, and Southern hospitality. And if they were so bad, it kind of makes me wonder if maybe the Civil War was actually fought not so that the North could defeat the South, but so that they could eliminate the remaining remnants of any memory of what happened during Jesus' millennial kingdom and after that. They had to get rid of it. And then they sold us this story about, these two sides didn't get along over taxes and slavery. It's really terrible the way they explain that. I'm from the hospitality state there, D. Russ. Or let me rephrase that. That's where I reside. And then it says in verse 14, "And the heaven departed as a scroll when it was rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places." Now, Jason Jack did a really good explanation of this, and it's I think he references chapter 19 and so on. But Mississippi. That's right. Down here in the SIP. But what this is talking about right here is that the heavens departed as a scroll when it was rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their place. That's when the land masses of our quarter of the earth that we reside in, and if you've seen that in my other videos, I show the earth and the four quarters. What I am pretty much basing my belief on now, that we're in just one quarter of it, but our land masses were together, but are now separated, which is why they fit. However, the actual landmass that we learned about as Pangea itself is still there. It's still a giant landmass. It's just separate from us. But our quarter of earth that we live in, those lands separated. They moved away. Yes, there's a lot about the Civil War that makes the whole narrative about it very suspect. It just doesn't seem to align with the way that they say that it does, the way that it went about. They have Columbus and then Keesler Air Force Base down on the coast. That's probably where he was. Yeah. Well, yeah. See, that's the thing. I'm pretty sure it happened, but not in the way they told us it happened. I feel like a lot of people were fighting to preserve their way of life more than they were trying to preserve slavery or any of that. The whole idea of slavery is so ridiculous. The idea that all of one people could own all of another people is absurd. But to understand slavery, really, we're going to have to go back to Exodus, and we're going to have to learn from Scripture to really understand what this slavery that they were talking about was all about. But this isn't one of those debates necessarily. Let's see. Yeah, it isn't. Yeah, it doesn't have anything. I don't think it has much to do with any of the reasons they told us it did. I think all those reasons were made up. And just like the whole writing of the whole idea that there was all these 20-year-olds and then this 80-year-old Benjamin Franklin writing the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, all that just doesn't make sense. Not the Declaration of Independence, but the Constitution and the amendments. It just doesn't make any sense. And then when you think about the Civil War and how all that worked and how that went down, it's like, well, I don't know. It just doesn't, none of it makes sense to me is all I'm saying. Just looked enough, I've read enough to know that some of it is too suspicious. Let's see what they have found, what you guys have found. A lot of construction took place in the same period the war was going on. Who built? The men were all at war. Yeah, and I've wondered that, If we get fed these pictures of like fields where they say that, oh yeah, this war took place, or this battle took place in this field, and I suppose there were some people that were alive during that war, that time of war, but and they would know better than we would, obviously, but during that time they would have been, I don't know. You would only believe what's going on around you. No, not just off of what you're seeing, but what you're being told about what it is all I'm saying. And it seems to me there's not a whole lot of battle pictures, but there's a lot of pictures of men in their uniforms kind of hanging out, in these little, it's almost like picture perfect scenery. More like stage scenes. Kind of like, your old timey photos you might take at the fair or something like that. It's kind of what it seems like to me, but when I think about that and start looking into all that stuff, but that's neither here nor there at the moment. Finishing this part up is, I'm going to move all back to where I was before I lose my train of thought again. But and the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chiefs, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. Let's see that I didn't pull that up. I didn't show you guys that. See if I can find it. I might not have put it in here. I don't think I did. Nope, I didn't put it in here. I left one of my slides out, but I had another image to show you, but it was showing that it was just a picture of them showing Chat GPT, I guess, or the AI after this was showing that when I asked it to show me the kings of the earth, the great men and the rich men and the chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman and every free man, and hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, it showed a really nice, cool image of how all the people were hiding, and the angel was flying around outside looking for them and stuff, and he was gathering some people out of their hiding places, and so it didn't matter what they did, they couldn't escape. But these men were trying to hide in caves, in mountains, just like what we think of today when, these big, giant, multi-million-dollar labyrinths that go underground and people live in them. I mean, can live in them. They call them doomsday bunkers or whatever. We have them today, but even those that is not wouldn't save people from what took place during that time. And so conscious thought would tell you that if people could remember that time period accurately, you wouldn't waste your time with bunkers if you know that even bunkers couldn't help you. There'd be no point in doing that and wasting your time with it. So the only reason I could see people really focused on trying to build bunkers today is they think that this isn't going to happen again like it did last time. And they're right to think that, because it does later on tell us that no matter how bad it was for these people during tribulation, it's not going to be that bad ever again. But it doesn't mean that there won't be any more consequences for anything ever. It just means that it won't be this bad. Not to say that it won't be bad, it won't be this bad. So what I'm referencing there is what happens after us, like immediately following right after us. After our time here is over. It's weird because I kind of feel like I have this gut feeling, let's put it that way. And I don't like to share my feelings on stuff like that too much. I like to keep those things private. But some things I do like to share. And the reason I like to keep those those feelings in like that. And I don't mean like every feeling. I mean, when I have those random thoughts like that, because I like to go and research my stuff before I start vocalizing my thoughts. That is way too many. Way too many. Chill out. Way too much. But I wanted to show you that, but this is all, that's all this is telling you, and that's what this is talking about. Then it says, "Into the mountains and rocks fall on us. And they said, to the mountains and rocks, fall on us, hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. Save us from..." They want to save us from, let's see, I'm going to pull this back up. They're crying. They're suffering. People are terrified. They've done everything they could to live in this world and hold on to it. Yet they're begging the angel of the Lord to spare them. They're begging. They're doing the same thing that everybody as a Christian today thinks is going to happen someday. It's soon that they're going to be, Jesus is going to return, and he's going to say, I don't know, depart from me, you workers of iniquity, you doers of evil, no good, you lukewarm Christians, depart from me, I never knew you. And they don't think that's going to apply to them, though. They think that only applies to the people that don't accept Jesus. Well, there's a difference in accepting Jesus and obeying Jesus. There are a lot of people that, whether they like it or not, have to accept that Donald Trump is now their president. Don't mean they have to listen to him. I'm not sure how well that will work in today's time, but, to each their own. Try and you will find out, I guess. And anyways, that's all I'm pointing out is that it didn't matter what they did. They were hiding from the Lamb of God. They did not want to. They didn't want to be killed. They knew that this man meant business. They knew that when Jesus came, they've already read the letters. I mean, they've already seen that. All that's had been done. And so when they saw this king return, it would have been crazy, a crazy thing, because everybody would have saw him, not just one person. So it wouldn't matter if you didn't know what was going on in Jerusalem or not, and you lived way out in the boondocks. You still saw Jesus coming in on the cloud. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? For the great day of his wrath is come. This is present tense. For those who struggle with grammar, this is present tense. It's not past, it's not future. There's been no deception on past tense or future tense in anything we've read so far. So there's no reason to assume that anything we're reading now is trying to deceive us. This says, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? He's shutting everybody down right then. This is it. That's what this is telling you, that this is happening right now. Not in 2025, not in 2024, not in 2026. This is happening before the events of the 1,000-year reign that have already taken place. And as we continue this series, we'll move into the next few chapters, and we'll unlearn and relearn what these words mean. If that's your goal, being here, and that's my goal for you, is to help you relearn and unlearn the falsities that come along with the deceptions of this millennials, of this little season that we're in right now. This is a short time period. It's not that long. One of my helpers today made a neat little comment. He said, it's weird to think about that we've only had 47 presidents. And that is pretty weird to think about, that we've only had that many. We haven't been around that long. This time period doesn't last that long. Whether or not this time period ends next year or 1,000 years from now is not really relevant. Just like, did I lose it? Let me see if I can pull that back up. All right, it's struggling here. All I'm saying is that whether it's next year, 5 years, 200 years from now, or 1,000 years from now, if we're wrong in the little season community and none of this has happened yet and it's about to happen, the best we can hope for is that when we die, we get to join this group of people right here and get to sing that song, "When are you going to judge everybody?" We're waiting. What's going on? We're waiting. When are you going to judge everybody? They're trying to get that. They're up there singing, asking him, when is this going to end up happening? So it's interested. It's fascinating stuff. For the great day of his wrath has come, and who all shall be able to stand? Whether it's next year, this year, or 1,000 years from now, or it's already taken place. If it's taken place, that's even better for us. It's even better for all of us because we don't have to worry about what comes next in chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9, 10. We don't have to worry about these horsemen. We don't have to worry about these apocalyptic events. We don't have to worry about the stars falling from the heavens. We don't have to worry about none of that. And we don't have to worry about any of this. What they're telling you is that they're telling you how bad it was, but we don't have to worry about that. But let's say, for the sake of worldly arguments, that it does, that we do have to worry about that. And if we do have to worry about this, it doesn't matter. We still get glorified bodies if we end up dying for his name's sake. So if we die now, then we end up joining that group if none of this is happening, because that's what that righteous group is there for, to help bring in. They're the army that comes with God, or with Jesus when he returns. That's what they end up being. So all I'm saying is it doesn't necessarily matter on if we're right or wrong in this. What matters is that we're trying to serve God. And the only way to serve God truly and accurately is to learn through Jesus, the Christ, who came, lived, died, resurrected, and came back, ruled like he said he would. But now we're simply just waiting for him to come back. Good night, D. Russ. It's good to have you here, my man. Good to have you. It is pretty late, and and we are wrapping up for this evening with this. But let me catch up. Makes you wonder why the ones prior to Washington weren't counted, huh? I think that time period changed many things. I think it did. Yep. I think that they came to an agreement that basically said, okay, well, we can kind of keep things y'all's way, but we're going to kind of do things these other ways. We got to follow these strict rules. Now, if you disobey the rules, you lose certain things. It's kind of like today, if everything's going well and enough people complain about it, the government steps in, and next thing you know, it's regulated. And essentially, I think they end up just taking it from them. I don't think that they're the villains that we've been taught, that they try to teach you, is all I'm saying. That the Southern people were not the villains. If anything, it'd be the opposite of that. It's sort of creepy how they fell into the cracks. You're right, it is. It's very creepy. But that said, guys, look, I think I had one more picture I wanted to show you. Let's see. Yeah. So I just wanted to reiterate this. So obviously this isn't real. This is just an AI drawing. But this is a better, I just did this because I asked it to do this because to show me the Hebrew cosmology map of the world, and this is what it did. It spit this out, and it gave us 4 different biomes, like a video game, which is pretty neat. But essentially, this is what the world would be like, would have been like, and we're in this bottom corner. We're down here in this area down here. This is where we live, and this is one of the 4 quarters of the earth. But then you have all these lands over here that are basically together for whatever reason. It's pretty interesting stuff. That's Anubis. For those who are unaware of what Anubis is or who Anubis is, he's an Egyptian god that they came up with, but his whole story and whatnot is it's almost it's a reflection. It's a inverse or reverse reflection of the Black Horseman. It's all he is, and a lot of the gods are like that, are inverses. And then this was a pretty neat little photo here. I thought this was pretty cool. Now, like I said, I'm gonna upload these to my Discord. And I'll post them in one of those channels that I have in there. And so if you guys want it, you could have them. You can go in there and get them, download them if you want. Other than that, I don't think I'll keep the words on there. I think I'll just kind of keep them all blank and keep them like that. But so that you can use them for however purpose you want. It's just neat. They're just neat photos that ChatGPT came up with. There's nothing that you need to cling to or hold on to or anything like that. It's not anything we need to idolize. Well, the Hebrew pictograph tet is a circle with an X in it, which is Earth, and Father's basket. So it makes sense. AI did that. Yeah, exactly. It does. It makes sense that AI would do. Yeah, exactly. That's basically all I was saying, and that's the thing. I don't really even have to explain myself too much. Like I seem like I have to explain everything else to a lot of other people. This community is full of bright, very smart people, regardless of your culture, creed, or background, or where you come from. The people in this community are people worth knowing, is all I want to point out with that. And if you don't know what the millennial kingdom is and you hear someone talking about it, that's a conversation you might want to jump into. Because I can promise you that person that's talking about it is unlike any other person you've ever met. And I don't mean that in a bad way, of course. It's it's all good stuff, but they're amazing people, That don't make I'm not saying I'm perfect or we're perfect or that we're all great people. Just saying that, it's a good community, and like Wendy said earlier, it's a community where you can say the things that are on your mind when it comes to the truth in Scripture without having to worry about ridicule. And that's the thing, there are a lot of people that would know this stuff right now had they simply not been rejected for asking the questions when they did ask them at some point in their life. And I think a lot of us ended up asking questions at some point. And if you're like me, you kept on asking, that's for sure. I mean, yeah, exactly. That's for sure. LOL. I read what you just said as I was saying it. But that's, you would not, I mean, it just wouldn't be this. It's just not the same. That's right. They're open-minded and willing to hear each other out. It's why I'll listen to people even now that I know I don't agree with them. Because just because I don't agree with them don't mean that they're wrong necessarily either. But it doesn't mean that I'm wrong either for disagreeing with them. But I'll still listen to people and hear them out, because there are things that are worth knowing within the stuff that you don't agree with. Just like I have a hard time believing in Egyptian gods as being real beings, but that don't mean I don't believe that they weren't based off of real beings. But to have these kind of conversations out in public, it is really tough. We kind of hide from it, but this community makes you feel emboldened. And I'm starting to see that, and more people are starting to come around to it. More people are starting to talk about the little season and the millennial kingdom. The people are talking about the mud floods, which are leading them to this, miraculously. And people that are talking about the mud flood came from the flat earth stuff. I mean, and people in the flat earth community came from the great deception community. Hey, we're being lied to. Don't know what. Oh, flat earth. That must not just that. It's a lot of stuff. It's everything. Everything has been made up, been made a lie. But that being said, this book is not a lie. The words in this book are the most true words you'll ever read. They're the most important words you'll ever read. And for anyone who has had any struggles in your life, therapy is not the answer. Psychiatry is not the answer. But this book, the words in this book, they're your answers. Because every issue that you can imagine you're going to face in life, someone else has already went through it, and God showed them how to deal with it. Then later on, you get his son. He comes in, and his son says, hey, Y'all aren't figuring it out. Let me break it down even better for you. And he does. And here we are today, still struggling. And we don't have to. God is wonderful. He's amazing. He has helped me more times than I can count. I don't deserve half the blessings that I receive. I just really don't. I really am not doing any of this for me. I'm not that worried about what happens to me at this point. What I'm more focused on is I don't want my kids and my future grandkids to have to struggle and wonder and be confused. I want them to be able to go through life, do the things they enjoy doing in life, but with the comfort of knowing that God is is in them, that his word is resting on their hearts just like he tells us it will be, and they understand who the God is that I serve, so that hopefully they'll serve that same God, and we'll all be able to welcome our creator and his son as they return. We'll be able to reach out open arms and welcome them. Hopefully, for our sake, this all does happen pretty soon. I would love to see this all wrap up at some point within my physical lifespan. However, if it happens afterwards, yeah, it just does. And if it's already happened and we're all wrong, well, we'll figure that out pretty soon too. A lifespan ain't that long as it is. We're a blip in time in comparison to God's time. That being said, I did go over a little bit, but I strayed off a topic a time or two here and there. You guys are amazing and wonderful. It's Monday, and it's 10:13 on a Monday, the 20th. So the next time I'm going live again, just so you guys, if you want to prepare and set it on your calendar or anything like that, you can. Some people are like that. Some people are like me, just kind of just go with the flow. But I'm gonna try to organize this, and I'm gonna be back again on Thursday. We'll pick back up with episode 4 and chapter 7 of Revelation, and we're moving forward. And we're gonna help people get to the bottom of understanding what's been misunderstood about this book, when in time we are, and how these prophecies and everything aligns with what's going on today. You guys are amazing and special and wonderful. I love this community. I love you guys deeply and dearly. Blessings, all of you. I hope you all have many blessings, and I will see you guys when I see you guys next time.